Many years ago, in the Iraqi city of Najaf, there lived an old man named Luqman. He lived a life of poverty with his wife and 2 children. Their situation had become so desperate that many days passed without them eating anything. One day, as hunger began to loom heavily over their small home, Luqman's wife said to him, "I can't bear to see our children starve. You have to do something." Luqman sighed deeply and replied, "I've worked hard my entire life, and I've never avoided my duty. But now, I no longer have the strength to do heavy labor." His wife was heartbroken by his words and began to weep. Seeing her tears and his hungry children in despair, Luqman tried to comfort her, then quietly left the house. As he walked through the streets of Najaf, his thoughts were heavy. "She's right," he thought. "No matter what, I must find a way to feed my children. Hunger doesn't care if you're young or old. When you're responsible for others, even old bones must bear the burden." He arrived at the market where he saw a well-dressed man looking around. It was clear he was someone of wealth and status, searching for a laborer. Coincidentally, there was no one else in sight. Luqman approached him and asked, "Son, are you looking for a laborer?" "Yes, sir, I am," the man replied. "Then your search is over. I am that laborer," Luqman said with quiet resolve. The man hesitated. "I don't want someone of your age to do such work." "I don't want to do it either," Luqman replied, "but responsibility has left me no choice." The man looked at the old man thoughtfully. "He must be very desperate," he thought, "and I haven't found anyone else. I'll hire him, but I'll go easy on him." He took Luqman to his home and had him work for a few hours. When evening came and the work was done, Luqman asked for his payment. "I'm sorry," the man said. "I forgot to mention, I'll pay you later. I don't have money right now, but I'll return it in a few days." Hearing this, Luqman's heart sank. Still, he held back his disappointment and said, "All right, son, give it to me when you can." He returned home with empty hands. When his wife saw the dirt-stained clothes he wore, she smiled. "You've worked today. That's something. At least we'll have some food." But when Luqman told her that he had received no payment, her smile disappeared. "Why didn't you ask about payment before working?" "Maybe this is a test from God," he replied. "Who hires an old man these days?" "Don't worry, God will provide." "I can survive hunger," she said. "But what about our children?" I placed an empty pot on the stove and told them food was cooking. They waited for dinner until they fell asleep. Luqman's heart broke. That night, they slept hungry again. The next morning, his wife told him, "Maybe you shouldn't work as a laborer anymore. You saw what that got us yesterday. Try something else, anything, to find food for the children." Luqman sat in deep thought. Suddenly, an idea struck him. He got up and began searching through the house's old belongings. He rummaged through everything but found nothing of value. Just as he was about to give up, his eyes landed on an old carpet the children used to sleep on. He said to his wife, "This is what I was looking for. Let me sell it." With sorrow, his wife said, "The children already have nothing. If you sell this, they'll be forced to sleep on the bare ground." Luqman said, "You yourself said the children are hungry. The most important thing right now is to feed them. In this situation, whether we have a carpet or not doesn't matter. We must arrange food." When his wife saw that his eyes had fallen on the old carpet, she began to cry. With tears in her eyes, she lifted the children from the carpet and said, "Since you've already decided, take it. Take this carpet from our hut, but please make sure you sell it for enough to feed the children for at least a few days." Luqman remained silent, lowering his head. He had nothing to say. He rolled up the carpet, placed it on his shoulder, and quietly left the house. He passed through narrow alleys and bustling markets until he reached the part of the city where both old and new items were bought and sold. There, he called out, "Carpet for sale! Carpet for sale!" After a few calls, some buyers approached and began inspecting the carpet, flipping and turning it over. But after examining it closely, they pointed out 100 flaws and walked away. At last, a buyer arrived who seemed to like the carpet. He asked the price. Luqman, relieved, replied, 10 dinars. The buyer was surprised. "Who would pay 10 dinars for such an old carpet?" he said, and began to walk away. Luqman followed him, grabbed his hand, and pleaded, "Please, don't be so harsh. I'm selling this out of desperation. Take it for less if you must." In the end, he sold the carpet for just 5 dinars. Though it was a small amount, he felt somewhat at peace and began walking home. On the way, he kept thinking about what he could buy with such a meager sum to bring some joy to his children's faces and fill their stomachs. While lost in thought, he noticed 2 men arguing in the street. He approached to understand what was going on. As he got closer, he saw a wealthy man grabbing a poor man by the collar, demanding repayment of a loan. The poor man was resisting. Luqman stepped forward and gently asked, "Brothers, is everything all right? Why are you fighting?" He then turned to the young man and asked, "Why are you treating this poor man this way?" The poor man, in tears, said, "Baba, I owe this man 5 dinars. I'm just a poor man. He's humiliating me in front of my children and threatening to take me to court, but I have nothing to repay him. I'm in deep trouble. I haven't eaten in days, and my wife is sick." But the wealthy young man, unmoved, said, "I don't care about your problems. I just want my money." Luqman began to think deeply. Could anyone be in more need than this poor man? He wondered. If he is imprisoned, what will happen to his wife and children? Who will feed them? Without saying a word, he reached into his pocket, pulled out the 5 dinars he had just earned, and handed them to the young man. "Here, take your 5 dinars. Let this man go so he can get his life back together." The wealthy man was stunned. He couldn't believe a stranger would come out of nowhere and show such generosity to help someone in need. He silently took the dinars and let go of the poor man. The indebted man, exhausted from crying, sat beside Luqman with tears in his eyes and said, "May God reward you many times over for your kindness, the way you helped me today. If God ever blesses me with wealth, I too will help the needy." He thanked Luqman repeatedly and left. As the 2 men disappeared into the distance, Luqman said to himself, "Now I must return home empty-handed. But despite the hunger, I feel at peace. I've done a good deed." When he reached home, his wife saw him sitting silently with his head down. She immediately asked, "What happened? Why have you come back empty-handed? And where's the carpet?" Luqman told her everything in detail. She sighed deeply and said, "You've eased the burden of a man in debt." Luqman's wife said, "You did a very noble deed by easing a debtor's suffering. But now tell me, what will we eat? The children can't bear the pain of hunger much longer." Luqman had no answer to her words. After a pause, he humbly said, "Have faith in me. If I go out to sell something again, I won't sell it. I'll pawn it instead. I don't want to lose everything while trying to help others." His wife responded, "Is there even anything left in our home that you can pawn?" Luqman stood in the small room of their hut, looking around. Then he said, "I think I should take this bucket. Give me the bucket so I can try to get some money for food." His wife replied, "Yes, take this too. Go ahead and lose it like the rest. But looking at its condition, I doubt anyone would buy it or even accept it as collateral. Better to just give it away in charity or break it." Still, Luqman picked up the bucket, said goodbye to his wife, and left the house. He entered the marketplace and went to a shop. He said to the shopkeeper, "I need a loan." The shopkeeper replied, "If you have something valuable, you can pawn it for a loan." Luqman showed him the bucket and said, "This is all I have." The shopkeeper looked at the bucket and said, "This is a used and worn-out bucket. It's not fit for pawning. Go back home and bring something else valuable if you want a loan." But Luqman had nothing else. Disheartened, he stepped out of the shop. He wandered the city carrying the bucket, but found no one willing to take it in exchange for money. As the sun began to set and the time for dinner drew near, despair grew in Luqman's heart. He said to himself, "Perhaps I made a mistake. This bucket isn't worth enough to be pawned or sold." Before darkness fully fell, he decided to sell it to anyone he could find. He began calling out in the market, trying to sell the bucket, but no one showed interest. Some even mocked him and walked away, laughing. His heart ached. He was starving. Finally, he looked up at the sky and said, "O my Lord, you know best that I have never failed to thank you. Why then have you shown me such a day where nothing sells and no one listens?" Still, he didn't give up. As he looked around, he saw a fish seller nearby who also looked distressed. The fish seller needed a container to hold his fish. They sat near each other, and the fish seller, seeing the bucket, said, "Elder, I'm desperate too. I've been trying to sell this fish, but can't find a buyer. You seem to want to sell that bucket. Why don't you trade it with me for this fish?" Luqman thanked God in his heart and accepted the offer. He gave the bucket to the fish seller and took the fish, then headed home, relieved that he'd once again helped someone in need. On his way, he thought, this small act, which seems so insignificant, might open the door to God's mercy. When he arrived home, his wife asked, "Did you bring anything to eat today?" Luqman handed her the fish. Seeing it, his wife thanked God and said, "At least today's meal is taken care of." She began cleaning the fish when suddenly she cried out in amazement, "What is this sparkling thing inside the fish's belly?" Luqman rushed over and saw that inside the fish were large, gleaming pearls. The entire room lit up with their radiance. Both of them were stunned and stared at each other in disbelief. His wife exclaimed, "Glory be to God! These look like precious pearls. Who knows? Maybe all our sorrows will end with this." Luqman looked up toward the sky and said, "O Lord, thank you for showing mercy to your creation." The next morning, he took the pearls to the market and showed them to a jeweler. The jeweler, upon seeing the pearls, was astonished and said, "Elder, these are extremely valuable pearls. I will give you 1,000 dinars for them." Hearing this, Luqman was overwhelmed with joy and began to weep. He quickly agreed to the deal and returned home with the 1,000 dinars. He said to his wife, "God has helped us. From now on, we will no longer go hungry, and neither will our children." His wife, overjoyed, lifted the children into her arms and said, "O God, thank you for saving us from starvation." The doors of God's mercy had truly opened for them. The man for whom Luqman had once worked for a day as a laborer came looking for him. Not only did he pay Luqman his overdue wages, but he also gave him a generous reward for his patience. After that, Luqman safeguarded the money and spent the night in humility and gratitude. Within a few days, he used the money to start a business in the market. In a short time, Luqman's life changed completely. He became a wealthy and respected man, but he never abandoned his humble and generous nature. He continued to help others and taught his children the same. No matter what happens, always trust in God and help those in need. God will surely help you. He may delay, but he never forgets. Just trust in him. He never abandons his servants. Thank you for watching the video. Please do subscribe our channel.